Otherwise, they won't hear it.
We're ready, Plum.
Okay, we're going to start the meeting. Just to get a quick heads up, we are going to go into executive session about 2 minutes into the meeting, but it should, God bless you, it shouldn't last more than 5 or 10 minutes at the most. So roll call, I'm Bob Carlson, the first selectman. With us, who we have Selectman Brett Mastriani, Selectwoman Nicole Porter, and our admin finance director Suzanne Thero. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I'd entertain a motion for us to go into executive session. I'd like to invite Superintendent Troy Hopkins and BOE Chair Stephanie Mastriani into executive session.
Do we have to second that?
Motion.
Second, okay.
Okay, so motion by Nicole, second by Brett. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I'm all set, yeah. Okay, so we're out of executive session. We're back into our normal meeting. First thing on meeting number 4 is IT position discussion. So right now, we do not have that position filled. There's options that we have as a town. We can do something as we've done in the past, post it and just try to fill it as we do in some positions. We can try to do something with the school department, who just recently has had changes in their IT department. And the thing is, we need to do something fairly quickly. It's mostly because of the fact that we have IT breaking down daily. I think the first 2 hours of every day, Suzanne puts on her IT hat and has to go around the building and get everybody up and running, because it's either the town clerk or the assessor. Somebody's saying, I can't get on my computer, my printer doesn't work, the postage machine doesn't work, the copying machine doesn't work. And and then I'm getting calls from both the fire company, senior center, occasionally, but not often, from the highway department. Today, heard that the phone wasn't working in the trooper's office, and the phones are tied into our computer system. So I told Jason he can talk to Brian tomorrow when he comes in. So we right now have a consultant working on Wednesdays in person and on Thursdays remotely. But I guess what I'm saying is we need to do something quicker. The reason I had the superintendent here and the chairman from the Board of Ed is to give us some input on where they are as we talk about the different options that we have. First, we'll start with the selectmen, ideas on what you'd like to do first.
So we're not in public comment, right?
It's not public comment right this second, Ann, but it will be shortly. Well, public comment will be right after this.
So I've been looking at this for a while now. And a lot of the stuff that we see, we do need some direction in IT, but a lot of the things that we're dealing with are basic computer needs and fixes. So we have staff that, like you mentioned, the printer's not working right. Their computer, they can't get it working. It's a lot of support needs compared to director needs. So that's where I wrestle with saying we're just going to hire a director, because that's what the title is, at the salary that we have that at, compared to having someone that is maybe a lower paid staff person that with IT background that is the hands-on fixer of these things. And that's why originally a year ago or so, I mentioned, hey, if the need ever arises where the school is looking for someone and the town's looking for someone, you have a director that oversees the bigger picture items, right? At the higher salary, because they pay a pretty decent amount, and we pay a decent amount, not what the school pays, but decent. And then you have more of I relate it back to like the Best Buy Geek Squad, right? So we have a problem at the town that we need something addressed. That person can come over, assess what's needed, and fix them right away. I mean, in most corporations and businesses now, there's not always an IT person on site. Most things can be fixed remotely once we get them up to speed, right? Once we get our computers to date and all those things. A lot of it's just basic, a lot of it's software issues that can be fixed remotely, but we do have a need for someone to be able to come fix something in a relatively timely manner. But I don't know if we need an IT director, and the school needs an IT director. Obviously they need something because they have a lot more services over there. But when you look at the town level, once we're up to speed, I don't know if we need a director title position, or we need someone that is a more of a hands-on, yeah, we're getting a little feedback here, but more of a hands-on tech person, because there's so many different levels of IT. So that's before we just go and list that position as a director position, because we sub out our GIS now, and that was always the IT director's responsibility in the past. So we've subbed out a lot of the things that was part of the IT role, and we really witnessed also we can't get what we look at that high level at the salary we pay, right? So even talking to our consultant and we had a meeting with a resident of town that's been in the IT world for a long time at a very high level. He basically said, at what we pay, you're not going to get the top tier person that can assess all the bigger needs of the town sometimes, because those people aren't the same guys that fix the printer. And at that salary level, what are we getting? We're kind of getting somebody that doesn't do great at the higher level. And
So what's your suggested action starting tomorrow morning? What should we do?
well, starting tomorrow morning, we have to decide which direction we're going. We have our,
No, so what's your suggestion for which direction we're going? We have to decide, but what's your suggestion?
I mean, I would like to, so it's hard because we don't know where the school is on it. If they're
No,
dead set against getting a in-house director and they're okay with the learn like they're doing, which is saving them a little money at this time, then it puts us in a different situation. If they were open to saying, hey, let's combine forces, and we have that higher level thinking, the ones that order and look at the equipment as a whole, right? It might not be doing all the software stuff. We have they have someone on staff and doing it like a pool of, like I said, like a technicians, right? So we hire maybe 1, 2 more technicians and someone that oversees it for the whole town. Because we have to remember the size of our town, even with the school, is like a small business that would have one IT director.
So I think eventually we're gonna need somebody to say, this is what we need to upgrade our systems. This is what we need in the budget. What are we budgeting? What are we doing? How we?
I agree.
But I understand what you're saying on the day-to-day level. I need someone that can get her away from doing IT for 2 hours a day.
Correct.
So with that said, are you suggesting then we look to hire a technician and then down the road, see how the things go with the Board of Ed? Down the road, we took out maybe then bring in a director at that point. My only concern is right now and it's not a director, it's a manager's position, it's IT manager, is that's a union position. So I don't know whether the union will fight us unless we say that we're not eliminating the position, we're just holding off. We need a technician for now. I don't want to go through arbitration and have attorneys involved to just stretch this thing out because we need something sooner instead of later.
I get it, but I also don't want to be held hostage because of the union without actually ever talking to the union about it. I mean, to solve a short-term problem, there are consultants that could come in on a tech basis, but I think we could maybe utilize the consultant we have now for some of that bigger picture things like he's doing now, and maybe have someone do tech. I'm not sure without knowing where the school's headed, but I would hate, because we've been through this so many times before where we're like, okay, it's not the right time to look at the bigger picture because we just hired someone and now the school just hired someone.
Well, they
And
really
it's-
haven't yet. So
No, I'm saying what we've done in the past when we looked at other things, and not even necessarily with this administration, with other administrations, say now is not the right time because we just hired someone or they just hired someone. The time's got to be right. Well, to me, this is the right time to have those hard discussions and really look what's in the best interest of the community, the taxpayer, the school, the town, and solve this problem. And not just because we're in a short-term glitch, just
No, but it
knee-jerk
sounds-
reaction to hire.
It sounds like we
someone.
have an immediate need and then a long-term need, right? So you're saying try to fill the immediate need now with a technician at a much lower number than we pay the manager, and then see what happens with the Board of Ed and the town and go possibly combine and get a director down the road to handle both. But I need someone now that can fix computers and fix things that break.
Right, and maybe that's talking to the town, the school, about the tech person that could do both, because there isn't a need for someone at the town hall all day, every day doing tech. So there
I don't think
isn't.
I don't think it's 40 hours, but I think it's a 30-hour job
Right, but
eventually.
we might be better off if it is 40 hours working with the town, with the school, maybe they need an extra hand for 10 hours.
But they don't have an extra technician to loan us now to do these things.
Right, but this is discussion
So what do I do tomorrow is my question, Nicole?
So I just need to kind of understand what the current state is. So we had one IT manager that handled everything from the town. You had one why is it so loud?
I think
You
somebody
had
turned up.
one IT director. And then do you have additional support? What other additional support do you currently have?
Use that one, Troy.
Yeah, so we had our IT director resign. That was a full-time position, but we also have another full-time. Still employed with us. And we have now learned, support center who's functioning as part of. So they're fulfilling their. One of them. So they're coming. Sure, a new person, not my current person. Correct. No. Stretch so thin. The person that resigned would do some of that as the, yeah, but there are also the direct people, you know, what do we, order, need, field. Right now, it seems pretty much under control with our IT technician and using Learn as the IT director. And the beauty of having Learn as IT director, there's multiple people there with different skill sets and knowledge. And it's over the last week, there's been 2 different people on site here working on it that are in the skill set. So it's working. Could we use some additional hours from another technician? Absolutely. We have a lot of projects to do. So if the town hires someone that could, if we wanted to give us 10 hours, I think we could easily use up that 10 hours. I think a lot has to do with the person that you hire. And the beautiful thing going with Learn is you're not that person. So if there's one person that's not working, let's say. The other thing you should know is we are getting the IT director services from Learn at a really good rate right now. And that rate could go even lower because they applied for a grant. And one of the major thing they do is they support regional school districts. And so we're paying $490 a day right now for that director level expertise to come here in person. That's only if it's twice a week for 52 weeks, it's just over $50,000 and no benefits paid. That number could come down dramatically if they get this grant. And I actually have a meeting Friday about that. So yeah, it would be a shame to like give up that potential savings moving forward and not use it for that. When they're proving that they're doing a little bit.
Do long term.
As not a band-aid, because it's certainly much more than a band-aid.
It started that way, and
But it's working.
and it's working well, and I believe it could continue to work well in the future. But that's something that the board is going to have to discuss.
So one thing about Learn is they can work with the school, but they can't work with the town. They're strictly a school entity. And in the Council of Governments, which is our thing like that, it's like, yeah, they don't do IT. I talked about that with them today. They do planning and building inspectors and things like that. However, another alternative is I did talk to Preston, Griswold, and Volantown, and they use a third party, an outside source to do all their IT. So that could be something we looked at down the road also. So they would be like our Learn if we wanted to look at that, investigate that. But I think right now, the biggest thing is to either have a acting consultant now to see if he can give us more hours, or if you can't, and I'm not sure he wants to find someone that we post something for a technician's position. Because I think we need someone sooner instead of later to at least get us in the day-to-day fixes. When they have 2 school buildings in a central office. We have this building, the 2 town halls, the fire station, the recreation building, the senior center, the highway garage, and the transfer station. So we have IT all over town. And there's some of that stuff that really needs to have some attention paid to it sooner instead of later, because has not been paid attention well in the last 2 or 3 years.
I just don't know if we're gonna get what we need from just a technician. And I'm not saying that disrespectfully to anybody, but if we're asking somebody to evaluate and assess our cybersecurity and our threat, I don't know. Most definitely your realm as far as your knowledge about IT. But are we sure we're gonna get the level of security that we all need from this person, with a technician that is going to fix the copy machine, but not help us make decisions about what to do to increase our security with our systems?
No, I don't think you will. I think it's 2 separate roles when you think about it for what we pay. And that's why I think there's an overarching person to look at those and to manage the IT.
But then we're talking about, so what I'm hearing, and I'm not putting you guys on the spot, but I'm hearing that you're pretty satisfied with where you're at right now, and that you're not specifically interested at this time in sharing an IT director and each having our own technician. Because if that's not the route you want to go, then you're kind of stuck.
No, I agree. We are.
Just, and I'm not, you need to decide what's right for you guys. But if we just go with tomorrow posting for a tech, then where does that leave the town as far as how we get that higher level assessment?
No, I agree. And that's why.
I don't want to add another position. Either we let the school do what they're doing, which is working, frankly, saving money and still getting the level of assistance that you need. Then why wouldn't we just post for the same manager position and try and find somebody that has both the tech and a little bit of a higher level?
Because well, yes, then you'll look for someone retired. And I do worry that I want to make sure we're not creating this position for our IT consultant. Because when you said 30 hours a week, that made me a little nervous, because when I was talking to them at one point, they said, hey, they'd love to do something that's 30 hours a week.
And Brett, to be honest with you, that's not my intent. My intent would be, if we decide time to put this out to bid, it goes out. We post it, rather, not to bid. We post it and let the best candidate win. I don't
But
care
as
who
a
that is.
full-time position.
Well, as a full-time, so full-time is 30 hours and more, but you just said yourself, you don't think it's a full-time position.
I don't, but I want to make sure that salary isn't what we've been having as full-time.
But is
And
there
now
an
we're doing for
opportunity to partner with the school, not on the director position, but on an additional 10 hours a week of helping out the school? And then we can work budgetary wise, how that.
Right, but
looks.
that's not necessarily a
Yeah,
IT manager role. So
Yeah.
and
Well,
I,
You're gonna find somebody that's gonna be able to do both.
Yeah.
And you don't have 5-day week coverage for 8 hours a day, right? With Learn? No.
I don't know if we are gonna find a qualified person to do both. So I remember the process we went through with our last IT person and looking for a quality person. And we went with someone that didn't have the greatest experience, but in the IT world, if you know what you're doing, you're not taking what's our salary at on that level?
I think it's in the low 70s.
Yeah, if you're a real IT person with that overarching security, knowing what the threats are, knowing what the equipment is and what we need, yes, we're a small group, but you're not working for $70,000, which is still a decent amount of money, but not in the IT manager role. So I do worry about that, and we get ourselves in another situation like we are in here. And when I mentioned working with the school and having a tech, I meant like a pool of tech, so not multiple, but those two people could be on task where the school has certain needs where they have a greater need this week than we might. So those people work together in you work like tickets. Okay, I'm going to the school to do this. Okay, now I'm going to the town to fix that printer, compared to they're sitting in our town hall waiting for something to break or doing research on stuff. I mean, let's be honest, like there was a lot of idle time over the past few years
For me.
in that
again,
office.
I think that's where we have an opportunity to partner with the town. Are you to go back to the Board of Ed and bring this to them as far as what you're willing to do? Because again, not to put you on the spot, but it kind of is dependent on what we have to do tomorrow.
I think ultimately in terms of identifying how to run the school, that's really on Troy. So we look to Troy to say, we need an extra 10 hours of an IT tech or something like that. And right now, Troy is working on his budget, right? He's administrating his budget from last year and looking to build the budget for this year. So I don't think it necessarily needs board approval for Troy to say, I'd like to try something new. But I think if we start talking about restructuring our entire IT department, right, this would be a big change for us. Yeah, I think that's worthy of a larger Board of Ed conversation. And I think where we're at right now is that Troy has found a great solution to the departure of our IT director, and it has benefited us financially so far. And in some ways, with the skill sets that we're able to access, it's really nice for Troy to just be able to say, okay, today it's an email issue, I'm calling this person. Tomorrow it's a hardware issue, I'm calling that person. So I'm not sure that he's ready to necessarily assess whether that's a long-term solution or it's a short-term solution and this solution could be better. I think that's like a dollars and cents conversation.
Well, part of that dollars and cents stuff, when he mentioned, I agree. So if you're paying 50,000 a year now, why would you want to go back up to the 125 slot? But don't forget, if it's a IT director for the entire town, the Board of Ed's not picking up the whole cost of that. It's being shared with the
That's why it
town.
would have to be, that would have to be the conversation, and maybe that's a conversation for you to have about, like, what does that look like dollars wise?
But I think that's a conversation maybe it doesn't solve my immediate problem, right?
No, it doesn't.
So is the consultant, so we thought that consultant would kind of bridge us for a little while. Is that not?
It's
happening, or-
too much for him on his 2 days, and I don't know if he really wants more than 2 days at this point. I haven't talked to him about that. I think if we were to get a technician, that's something lower than the 72,000, what do we pay now? and have him troubleshoot, and then have the consultant maybe stay on board as an overseer for a few months until we can get somebody else in to be the director. I think maybe we could talk about that. But Brian's not here enough to fix things. That's why Suzanne's fixing things on a day-to-day basis. So that's just to throw a number out there. Let's say we could find a technician for $50,000. And luckily, right now, there's money in that line item because we haven't had a manager since November. So going through in this business, the fiscal year we're in right now, we've had 2 years without paying any salary to that line item. So we've been collecting money in that. So we have a little bit extra money. We bring in somebody for less than the 72,000 and possibly say to the consultant, can you still give us the 2 days a week for the next 2 months while we think about a director's position, overview position? That might get us through, but I need someone there that can be the fix-it person on a day-to-day basis. And I need to send them not only to the 2 town halls, but to the fire station and the other outbuildings that are having similar issues.
So you mentioned there were, Griswold was doing, did you think? Was it
Griswold, Preston, Valentin all have a third-party IT department.
So did we get any information from them to see how that would?
It's working well for all of them at this point, but they're not, maybe they're set up better on the ground level with their hard, their equipment than we are. Maybe we have a mismatch of equipment that was built over the years by the last 2 IT guys.
But
Maybe once we get settled, a third party would work good for us.
I thought the IT consultant was assessing all.
That's
those
what
things,
he's doing now, right? But we have existing equipment that seems to be faltering.
So is there any kind of outsourcing part-time service that we pay on an hourly basis to come in and do those things as a?
Or a second consultant.
Are you talking about to do the technician stuff or
to do
the?
the technician stuff as we work with the other person to look at the overall
It
picture.
is possible.
I
to
just
do.
would hate to commit to one. I'd hate to come up with a technician role that's like you say, is it 50,000? I don't know what that dollar value ends up to be, but I'd hate to commit to that, have someone on staff and then now realize, okay, that doesn't work. And we're stuck of not having that bigger overarching look at everything.
So maybe we could I could talk to, I think Preston and Valentine use the same firm. Talk to Sandra and say, how's it working? Do you have a contact I can speak to? And maybe they can come and do our day-to-day technician stuff while we think about in terms of the overall picture.
I feel a lot more comfortable with something like that until I just hate, it seems like a lot of the times we've hired in the past 5 years or so, it's a lot because we run into an issue that we just quickly hire and then it doesn't always end up to be the best solution. And then we're right back in the same.
So let's
boat.
talk about the process because you just mentioned the process about signing the contract earlier. Would you like me to find out who Preston, Griswold, Valentine, Salem, try to get 3 names of 3 third-party IT companies and then explain to them what we need and then get a price from all 3? The only thing I'm going to tell you is I need to do this like yesterday.
Well, I mean, so this is professional services, so you don't have to get 3, but you have to feel comfortable in what you're getting, right? And I mean, I have faith that you do that on a regular basis. It's just, yeah, I would reach out to see, hey, is that something we can call up and they can come tomorrow and fix it? Can we call the Best Buy Geek Squad to come fix a printer quickly? They put tickets in. There's companies out there that come to your location, just like a service call or anything else to fix something.
And
pretty quick.
sometimes time is of the essence. So
I get.
when the registrar's going to get a hold of the state, I've got the registrars in my office. If Antoinette can't do something with the town clerk's information or at this time of year, the tax collector goes down, they need a fix within like 30 minutes. They can't say, I'll be there at 1 o'clock this afternoon and try to fix it. They can't be down for half a day. So I also would have to see what kind of response time they have.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
If you can buy yourself some time at a reasonable rate, like we've been able to do, maybe that gives us an opportunity to assess the big picture without either of us making any permanent moves. And I think that you're probably right. You have to find a tech, but I know you're talking about tomorrow. What do I do tomorrow? And while our tech doesn't have time to spend part of his day, I wonder if it's worth Troy sharing his contact information with you and Troy having a conversation with him. maybe it's something he'd be willing to do additionally on top of his full-time work with us for a stipend for a short period of time and start doing that work until you can find.
I'm just afraid that I would need him the same time you guys would need him. You know, the biggest problem we have with IT right now is between 8 in the morning and 10 in the morning. That's when the employees first coming in, and I got to tell you, we probably have some user error from time to time. And we have older equipment, just misunderstandings on what's happening, wrong buttons are being pushed, and they just can't get things working. So I appreciate that thought, but I don't know if Greg could do it, because I think when you need them most, when the teachers need them, is when I need them. So, but I think I can, tomorrow, if I can get a hold of some of the other towns and say, give me some names and contact information, see if we can do this way, possibly keep Brian on as a consultant for a few more weeks or months, whatever we need to bridge the gap. And then we look at the big picture again. And again, Troy, if a director for the whole town makes sense, where you're not paying, you know, you're paying your half, I'm paying my half versus the 125 or whatever that number is. Maybe down the road it would work for both, but we don't know that yet. Maybe Lauren's going to be the perfect solution for you, and the town has to go in a different direction. So,
But I think as we're going into budget season, that Brian might be he can give us that oversight of the equipment we need and those kind of things for our budget purposes, right? But look into those other solutions for that day to day for right now, if we have to contract out. And I know that we're on a 5-year purchasing plan for our computers and all the desktops and laptops and things like that. So I'm not sure what really antiquated equipment, other than we know the servers that we need to replace are. But other than that, the day-to-day stuff, I believe we've always been on that 5-year replacement plan for laptops and desktops.
one of the big issues we're having is because the previous administration tied in, when Jim was here, tied the phone system into the computer system. And it seems like the phone system's causing a lot of issues with our computers. They're coming in on the same line.
Well, yeah, we talked about that at the meeting with IT and Mike Stark. Is the same data line where we're talking about switching that out. And I know we've talked about
And that may be something we might have to do, is come in with different lines for the phones versus, and separate those from the computers, because it seems like they're fighting against each other. So
yeah, they're setting the same IP addresses for the phone, might set it for the computer. But the server, and as we reassess that, we might need to switch those things out.
Suzanne just says,
No, I agree. The server is scheduled to come in tomorrow to start configuring it so we can roll it out after the audit. But like Bob says, telephone line and the computer network is all one, and they're conflicting with each other. So this person who comes in really needs to have the knowledge and to rebuild this infrastructure. It's not just a desktop person coming in and fixing computers. It's really understanding how everything functions. Our town clerk, both her computers are end of life. What happened with the 5-year plan, I don't know. I think it was scheduled for this year, but she's barely running. So we have some issues that we do have to resolve.
but could we, if we got technical assistance from a third party, we'll say, and have Brian do more of the overseeing to get the server up and running, and talk about the equipment, and have someone just running around fixing things, so you're not doing it and he's not doing it, which takes a lot of time. Is that a solution?
Well, and again, to reiterate, it is a union position.
But we can, I'm sure we can do something in a temporary situation. We say down, because right now it's a union position that's not filled. So it doesn't mean we're not going to fill a position similar to a manager or director down the road. But in the meantime, we have to keep the town up and running, right? So if we said we're eliminating that position and we're hiring 2 technicians instead of 1 director, then we'd probably be in arbitration with the union, and that would be attorney fees and arbitration fees and so on. But we're not saying that, right? So we're saying this is a temporary solution, and we're not eliminating that position at this time. We're just trying to move to that position, but we need to do something else first. Okay.
So I would still ask the two of you to go back and just kind of think about the option of a joint director. It is nice to be able to say I'm having this issue and I'm picking up the phone and I'm calling Vernon, and they're sending that type of specialist. But I think there's also something to be said for somebody that knows the entire infrastructure and knows the history and knows what went down, what went wrong yesterday. And then from a budget savings standpoint, again, just think if I'm making up a number and I don't know if this is accurate, but 125,000 for an IT director, right? Would be split 50-50, or we would even have to think about what would that split be as far as the needs. We'd still have a savings. And it would still allow us, even from a budget standpoint, if we hire somebody. A lot of money to be in there nowadays, but if we go much lower than that for some type of a tech, it still gives us a little bit of padding to add to. I think that the town could still absolutely save money in the end by creating a joint position that just had, for me, it would be nice to know that there was one director that was overseeing everything within the town and identify opportunities for us to work together and partner together in other things down the line. So that's just my one last kind of, please, you guys go back and talk about what the best move is for you next. But it sounds like we have for tomorrow, we have some kind of some options to not lock us into a definite solution, but gets you the help that, listen, we've all been at our computers when they crash and you need somebody now. So I understand not wanting to pick up the phone and wait for somebody arriving, but I would certainly third-party investigation, but if there's a Brian doing consultant for 2 days a week, could we not have a Brian number 2 that bridges some of that gap in the meantime? So if there's anybody out there listening that has IT capabilities and would like to partner with the town at a consultant level, but at least that gets some of the anxieties.
No, I appreciate it. I think this is all good discussion, good talk. I will notify, I'll talk to Preston and Volantown tomorrow, see who their contact is, see if we can talk to someone from there. Plus Brian's in tomorrow, so we're gonna get an overview picture, let him know what happened at the meeting tonight and see how he fits into the picture at this point. But I think going down, I don't disagree with Brett, looking at the long-term down the road, it makes sense to do it now while we're still in flux, but I need to have immediate needs taken care of also, so.
And Brian, Bob, if we need to have a special meeting to approve something that you need to move forward, we can do that. I don't want you guys hanging out there with not having the support you need. And just to piggyback on Nicole's point, it might not always necessarily budgetary save us on salary or something like that, but it could potentially save us on efficiency, on our purchasing, how we purchase from different groups and different organizations. And you look at some of these invoices and you're like, whoa, if we consolidated that stuff, we have more purchasing power, we have a lot more things. So to me, it's also about the efficiency aspect of how we run the IT for the town. And when I say the town, I'm looking at the school and the municipal side, because it's all taxpayer dollars, and how do we make it more efficient as a group?
Good discussion. I think we should end this at this point so I can let Steph, I think you have another meeting, right? You're late for it already. Sorry. Troy, thank you so much for staying. You have a meeting tomorrow night. Good luck. And I will talk to you soon. Thank you. We're going to move into, thank you to the Board of Selectmen and Suzanne for your advice too. Move into number 5, which is public comment on non-agenda items. Ann, did you want to talk in public comment? Perfect. Can you use this microphone right here? Is that okay? Yeah, so if you could. I'm gonna bring, I can't bring that one to you, unfortunately.
I was in the office today because I was disturbed about this article about Sean Murphy's request to have part of his his last paycheck get donated to the whatever. And she said that's legal due, and so that's not an issue anymore.
So what happened was that evening, it was an issue and the Board of Selectmen discussed it.
January 3rd.
Right, so that meeting, there was an issue that the Board of Selectmen discussed it in length. It did pass that night in a 2-1 vote. But the next morning, I had an email waiting for me from our town attorney saying that after looking into it further, that it was not something that we could do. I immediately got a hold of Sean and the other two selectmen just to let them know that the attorney's advising us that he can't do that. I spoke to Sean, and at that point, he withdrew his ask, and his paycheck would go out.
So it's not an issue anymore.
It's not an issue anymore, but in that particular evening, it was.
Yeah.
And we certainly will not be doing that.
Well, it
Because
seems,
we can't.
well, it
For an
seems to me
employee.
Maybe you
For
could
an
just
employee.
write a policy that says you will not do that, so nobody even thinks of asking.
Yeah, there was two,
Because I
sit-
could think of so many reasons why you shouldn't, even though it was maybe nice to do for him, but that wasn't your job.
in the article I mentioned, there was 2 incidences, but there were different types of issues, right? Different types of, there was an employee versus a volunteer who got paid to do
Yeah.
it. So there were 2 different issues, but one of them, I think, seemed to be fine with the auditors and with the attorney. The second one turned out it wasn't fine, the
Yeah.
employee, so. But I think we have a handle, but I don't disagree. A policy in place would probably be a good thing to do.
But I think you probably should write a policy so you have it in writing that you won't do it. I could think of so many reasons why you shouldn't, and it wasn't your problem to fix his problem. Or your job to fix what he perceived as a problem. And you might not have liked or agreed with the kind of facility or whatever somebody wanted to donate their money to. Like if it was a church or something, the neighborhood center is easy because that's sort of a community thing, but if it's in a church or something, somebody talked to me, said maybe Black Lives Matter versus funding the police or something. You could have had something that was a sticky issue of where they wanted to put the money. And it wouldn't look good. And the fact that this was using up employees' time to settle his problem, which is my money that you're spending for the employees, because it upset them and they had to rework their stuff. So I think it's a good thing it didn't go through.
Thank you.
So
Thanks.
my message today is better than it would have been had it not gone through, because I said don't do that.
All right, thank you.
So that's it.
That's it?
Did you want to say something about the IT?
What?
Did you want to say something about the IT?
I just want to say, if you've got a thing that with your pieces aren't working, and this happens every day, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. If you really, I think you maybe have to look at the whole system and revamp and get things that machines would like to talk to each other better. And I'm totally a dinosaur on computers, so I'm talking through nothing. But if it happens every day, that's not a good problem.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks. And thank you.
Is there any other public comment? Is anybody online with public comment? I see Brian Rathman. Are you waiting to speak, Brian?
Oh, he's going away and had a drink and come back again.
Brian, I see you.
His hand's not up though.
You didn't want to speak, okay? I can't hear you. You might be on mute.
We had this problem last time.
I can't see that either. Brian, I couldn't see that either, sorry. Okay, are you saying goodbye and I'll see you at the next meeting? And when you feel better? Thank you. I know you weren't feeling well, so get well. All right, next we have on approval of minutes.
So I'll make a motion to approve the Board of Selectmen, the Town of North Central Board of Selectmen, meeting minutes, from November, really November 19th.
I think that is the wrong header. No, it is November 19th. We had one in December. Nope. Maybe she included the wrong set of minutes in the meeting. Because we should have had minutes from, we did have a meeting in December. We pushed it back at, yeah, why don't we do that? Because we would have had, originally we were gonna meet December 3rd and the 10th, and that we finally met on the 17th. So this should be the set of minutes from December 17th. So why don't we hold off? I think we already approved these at the last.
Yeah.
We did.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, selectmen comments. Is there comment by either you, selectmen at this point?
Just, I mentioned this a while ago, but I would like to get on the agenda at one point about a potential ordinance change in regard to how we vote, particularly for the last one that's still out there, that's a little different, is the Board of Education vote. Right now, we only can vote, so each party can nominate. So if it's a if 4 members are up from the Board of Education for election, each party can only nominate 2 people. And then when residents go to vote, they're only allowed to vote for 2 people. So really what that does, it really isn't a vote. It's, everything's done either in caucus or at a committee meeting. Basically, those 4 people that come out of those caucus or committee meeting are elected, no matter what the vote count is. It was I don't have the exact date, and I'll bring it if we put this on the agenda for the next meeting. It was from the 50s that just altered the voting. So it was something that triggered the Board of Education to be only those 4 positions with only 2 votes out of the public. So it really doesn't give an unaffiliated or an independent any real chance to be a member of a board unless endorsed by one of the major parties.
My party has endorsed and put forward unaffiliated and independent people.
Right, we have as well. The Republican Party has as well. But if someone were to petition to vote, to run, or run on their own, the public never really gets to voice their vote, because you only get to vote for 2, even though there's 4 available spots. It's almost like what we did with the Selectmen a few years ago. If there's 2 available spots, you get to cast votes for 2 people. This only allows you to vote for 2 people for 4-member spot. So what it does is, and we can get into it at the next meeting when I bring it forward, is it never makes a member really talk to the public, because they get in, once they leave committee, they're on a board, whether they talk to a resident ever or not. There's no, it's not the power of the people. It's not the voter's choice. If the way it is now, mostly, if you ran for a spot and you only got 5 votes, you're getting on, no matter what. Because an independent person or an unaffiliated that wants a petition on, the likelihood of them ever winning an election or is slim to none, because a lot of people vote party lines, right? So they're not going to, if there's 4 spots, they only get 2, they're voting for some of their people. It's not a fair election process. Most of every other board we have is a race, except for Economic Development Commission. But in the tweak of this is when we fill a vacancy or a spot on the Board of Education, that actually becomes a race for just that one open spot in November, because it's not a balanced board by ordinance or state statute. And if you look at all the other towns around us, it's an actual race. But so going into this next election cycle, there's going to be 5 spots available. 4 pretty much get in right after their caucus or convention. but one has to really win if there's multiple, if there's two people from each
Well,
party.
so Brett, since this wasn't on the agenda tonight, I agree, let's put it on the meeting for the 21st.
Yeah.
And you can come, and we can have a real discussion on it, but it.
And I'll bring backup for that. This was just.
Yeah, only, and only because this wasn't on the agenda, I don't want to get too deep
Yeah,
into it.
I
this
agree
evening, so.
So definitely put it
The only first comment I had is the cabin is no more. If you go by there today, it's
on.
gone. Unfortunately, we tried to save the fireplace, but as the cabin came down, the fireplace started crumbling on its own. So it's basically just empty piece of land at this point. But the good news is it's down. No one can get hurt. Nothing's going to happen there. So that's the first part of our capital that we wanted to, and some projects that have been out there. We've got that done, and that was done quickly. And I thank Alan for getting it done so quickly. In here, we're doing odds and ends as we did, like nothing major in this room, but we did take this black thing down that used to hang.
It was up last night.
Yeah, not today, though, is it? Alan and the elves got to work on this room a little bit, so that was great. Next, number 9, request to tap trees at Hewitt Farm. Last year, so we know that Gary Nino taps the 3 lots on the end of the Main Street, Rocky Hollow, and we've always given permission for that. And he does a lot of nice things there, like he donates the maple syrup to the library and they sell it and they get to keep the property, things like that. 2 people, John Bradshaw and Wayne Biasi, have in the past tapped trees at Hewitt Farm. They usually used to go through Hewitt Farm and then Hewitt Farm would bring it to us. But the Hewitt Farm committee right now is kind of in a little hiatus. They just elected some new. Tim Tokus is the chair, and I think the vice chair is Rick Wood, and they're waiting for the next meeting to try to attract some more people and then elect a secretary. But they do have a meeting scheduled. They're going to get back up and running, and they have some fairly good plans on what they want to do. So I figured that in this case, the selectmen could approve this since the UFOM committee is not there. They would normally approve and bring it to us for final approval, but they've done it in the past. They tap trees in Hewitt Farm, and I don't know if Gary, you're aware of that. Okay. So all good thing, good people that spend a lot of time in our town on boards and commissions, and it's a nice thing to do. John's very active in the Boy Scouts, and the Boy Scouts do a lot of Eagle projects in Hewitt Farm. And Wayne Biasi and his wife Terry are very active in the Lions. So they give back to the town. This is a way that we allow them to do this.
So they're the ones asking, not.
No, they're the ones asking. No, Gary would tap every tree, but no, he has to share some.
And I know that the Hewitt Farm doesn't, they're rebuilding, but has anyone talked with them at all to see if they have an issue with the couple that are on it right now?
No, because they approved it last year and the year before. If it was somebody new, we had a meeting. I'm working with them as a liaison for the first 2 or 3 meetings, just so they understand how to run a meeting. They had a meeting in December. Their next one is planned, I think, for this coming month, maybe the 13th. No, it's not the 13th. It's coming up this month. And they have one meeting a month for the rest of the year. So as that board gets new people on it, I think there's room for 2 full-time members and 2 alternates. And the nice thing is that the 3 active members, there's 4 active members, 3 in particular, all past woodworking people. They like to do work around Hewitt Farm, clean trails, mow, fix things. Actually, 2 of them have volunteered to work on that back porch for the 1750 house. So, yeah, so that's where we are. So I'd like to entertain a motion to allow Mr. Bradshaw, Mr. Biasi to tap the trees at Hewitt Farm for this coming year.
Gary, can I ask you a really quick question? How many years have you tapped the trees on Main Street? Like, there's nothing, this is just for my education. There's nothing long-term in tapping trees every year. There's nothing long-term that happens to trees.
No, it's the same as if a branch breaks in an ice storm. You don't want to put too many taps in the tree. You go by the size of the tree. But basically, all you're doing is it's like giving blood. As long as you don't take too much, the entity recreates what it needs.
And then what Gary does, and I appreciate it, each year he asks us, he doesn't just assume he's going to do it each year. So each year he gives us an email, we approve it at a meeting and so on. So.
And that way, nobody feels like somebody's getting away with something that they couldn't do something. It just formalizes it. It's the right way to do it.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to allow
Mr. Bradshaw, Mr. Biassy.
Mr. Bradshaw and Mr. Biassy to tap trees on Hewitt Farm. Do you have any idea how many trees?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I mean, it's not the entire farm. They have a section. Plus, they can only do it when there's certain kinds of trees, right? So,
So I'm sorry, I'm gonna just pause on my, you don't need, well, maybe you do. I have seen roped off areas when your taps are in.
those aren't ropes.
They're tubes. So the modern way is to do tubes to a common receptacle, and then we'll come and suck it out. The Bradshaw, the three Bs, Bradshaw, Biassy, and Banker, they work together. They typically do a single tube down to a 5-gallon bucket on the ground or a tube. They typically stay around the community garden area. They're not everywhere.
Okay.
And, you know, it's pretty low impact what they do.
Okay.
I think John does the pancake breakfast with Boy Scouts at the Grange, and they provide the service for that. So it's all good stuff.
I love it. I just didn't know if it was gonna cordon off areas of Hewitt Farm that people couldn't walk on.
No, no, it doesn't go across trails. Right? No, it typically is down there, as Gary said, down there in the community garden, which really nobody even goes down there unless you're in the garden. And by the way, unfortunately, one of those bees is no longer with us.
Yeah, but I think they have a relative that could to fill the third bee again.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to allow Mr. Bradshaw and Mr. Biassy to tap trees at Hewitt Farm.
A second.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? None? Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Is that it? Did you vote, Brett? Are you abstaining? No.
I voted yes.
Oh, I didn't see. Okay, thank you. 3-0. Swanton Road speed hump discussion. So we had this discussion and the gentleman that lived in one of the homes was in at the last meeting. And I'm going to approach this from a different direction. In your packet, there was a quote by Alan on what it would cost to do that. To build that speed hump is $2,233.30. Would have to be done on the very end of the tar section before you hit the dirt. And I'm not for putting a speed hump there to slow down traffic because somebody wants traffic slow in front of the house, because we all want traffic slow in front of our house. I'm more concerned when he spoke to us, and I went up and checked out the road the other day, is the speed limit going up to that area is 35 miles an hour. And it concerns me that someone that's not familiar with the roads going 35 miles an hour, and then they hit that dirt, and now they're going 35 miles an hour on a road they shouldn't be going more than 10 or 15 at the most. And I don't know what could happen. There's going to be more people traveling that road. There is a sign that says 15 miles an hour, but as we know, not everyone pays attention to speed signs. It's not a suggestion. It's what it should be, right? So I'm thinking more in terms of safety. If knowing that there's going to be more traffic as there's more and more going on the Mashantucket Farm as that develops, I think I'm more worried about someone hitting that dirt at a high rate of speed than I am at just slowing it down because someone's driving slow in front of their home. So it accomplishes the same thing, but I think by having the speed hump sign ahead, the speed hump painted, and the sign that says 15 miles an hour makes sense to me. And I don't think it's a large number to spend when all three people that live in that road want this. So it's no one saying that I don't want this on my road. It makes the road a safer place to travel, and we think there's going to be increased travel. So again, I'm not looking to put speed humps all over North Stonington by any means.
No, that's my only.
But I think there's not many roads we have that go from tar to dirt and go from 30 miles an hour to 15 miles an hour. I think it's a special, and I'll take advice from both you and Brett on this. If you say no, obviously we will not do it, but that's just where I'm going.
Yeah, I'm not, believe me, the social media in the town has been filled with people that are concerned about speeding on their roads. I just don't know where do we cut off and say, no, we're not gonna put one on yours, but we're gonna put one here. Like in town, in the village, especially with, with town hall and now Chinook Fair, I absolutely supported that. with the school, with the library, everything, people walking. I just don't know where we're gonna be able to say, who do we have to say no to as we continue to put them in different places. I'm not necessarily against it, I'm just concerned that we're gonna end up having to continue looking at opportunities to put them in many places. And we have to start saying,
I agree. And I think every request has to be looked at individually. What's the conditions? Who's asking? How many people on a road? If everyone that lives on Grindstone Hill Road wants one, should we at least as public servants listen to what they want? Doesn't mean we have to do it, but we should at least listen. In this case, the only residents that live on that road have come to us and said, yes, we'd like to have that done. But Brett, what's your thoughts?
I worry, we end up putting them all over town because as we look at this stuff, for this particular spot, based on the amount of traffic there and the population living there, I wouldn't be in favor of doing it. And back to Nicole's point, you see speeding's a problem all over town and in every town. We can't just, we see it on Facebook and all social media, people complaining about it in this town, and you see it on the next town over. You'll see it on their Facebook page. It's definitely a problem, and I think this might be a solution right for that one spot, but I don't think if we start putting it here, we end up putting it at so many different locations.
But do we? Why? So would someone have to build a case on why that would have to happen?
We would, and like you said, with the village, you said the majority of the residents around there voted to do it. But at the same time, there is a lot of, and I supported that, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that utilize that to pass through to get to their homes. This location, there's not many of those people. So and those people are against it, the ones that have to utilize it to pass through to their homes, but we didn't reach out and say, hey, you guys, do you care? You live on Wyosop up the road and you come this way. Do you care about it? We did. I would not be in favor of this one. And I wouldn't mind hearing each one and basing it on the merit. But the way I look at this one and what's happening there, I would not be in favor of.
No, it's fair. Okay, there's,
I mean, and it's hard because if that were my family and my kids that were playing near the road, I would worry too. I just don't know if, and just quick, Alan, the 2000, right, 2233, I'm assuming that comes out of operational line items that are already there. It would have run some kind of variance, not that $2,300 is a lot of money, but I just don't know. I just don't know if the action warrants the amount of traffic on that road. And I think that I'm probably not in favor right now, but if the Mashantuckets and the farm come and they build there and there's something coming that is bringing more traffic, I'm not saying I would not consider it, reconsider it in the future. I just don't know if it warrants that spot right now.
so do we, rather than vote on it, should we then table the vote until see what develops on that road? Or you want to vote now and get a yes or a no?
Yeah, and I mean, we have our, we still have our speed monitor thing that we can plot in different, we did it in the village, right? So maybe even trying that and trying to get some kind of data to, we can consider it. I'm actually in favor of tabling it. Voting on it tonight.
Okay, Brett?
I am as well.
Okay, so why don't we do this? It's rather than vote and have it be approved or not approved, why don't we table it for, and I'll let Mr. His name is Mr. Collin know that it's been tabled at this point. The selectmen want to see more evidence of that there's actually a need and not just a assumed need, but a need. And I do have a speed box, a black one that goes on a telephone pole. We could put out there and monitor it for couple of weeks time and see how much traffic there actually is there. It would give us the traffic count and what speed that the traffic's going at.
That would be perfect data to
Okay,
think about in the future.
okay. That's good. EMS pager system. There's 3 quotes, 2 that you had in your packet, 1 that came in late that I put on your desk. We talked about there is money in capital under there's money in capital under the North Stonington Animals Association, past capital that more than covers this. I think Brett had asked that we got 3 quotes. We have a quote from DNR. We have a quote from J&S, and we just got a quote yesterday from Goosetown.
Remind me, what is the vendor
So-
that they were recommended to?
DNR. So this is in, and we're joining with QV, which we've approved. I'm changing their dispatch. QV is working with the town at a much lower rate than Groton was. Part of the stipulation was to update these pages at the lowest price. They came in with 6,000, which is what they thought they were going to have. The second quote came in at 62.50, and the third quote I think was quite a bit more than that from Bruce now. Talking to both Logan and Chief Steinhardt today, they're very comfortable with DNR. They'd like to have us approve that, which we can out of the past monies that are in the capital. I think there's around 12,000 plus in capital that we can borrow this from, or take this from. And I said that would kind of seal the deal with QV. We've already signed the contract, but this would just kind of finish things off so we can move forward. Discussion, thoughts?
So I think these prices are in line. So when I saw the first one came through, I did some research on my own. You know, it might be slightly more, but I mean, minute, not where you can get them from other sources, not close to here, but nothing to make a difference.
Slightly more than.
I mean, slightly less. These
Oh,
might be
okay.
slightly more, but nothing where we're talking about a few $100s total. The only thing that I would suggest in the future that I'd like to see on these is if there is shipping, to make sure we look at that. So this quote does not include standard shipping charges, which one quote says, the other one doesn't. And I just referenced back to one that we saw with a different department that the item was what, $6,000 and the shipping was $3,000. So I just want to make sure we're not going.
And I understand, I
right.
think that was also furniture. This is like pages.
I get it.
So,
But I just, when we look at quotes, I would like the shipping to be on there because they know where it's coming. So they can put the
well,
quote
it
on
looks
there.
like
But
it's
I would,
coming from Webster, Mass. I'll tell you, I'll be glad to drive to Webster,
Right,
Mass and get these rather than pay for shipping. So,
I'm just saying going forward with the.
no, I
quotes.
understand, Brad. I
But I would
appreciate
make
that.
a motion to
Approve and go with
approve.
DNR.
to DNR Communications.
All right,
I'll second.
all right, perfect. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for the ambulance and fire company for getting those quotes.
No, not a problem. And if you notice it, on the Ambulance Association equipment, we had 12,585.53. So this will drop that to 6,585.53. On this sheet, which you get, and we'll get another one next week on capital. This is what we're working off of to take care of some of these projects like we did with the cabin today, the back porch at 1750 House, this room itself with improvements. I said the demo. This money has been paid by taxpayers and sitting in buckets and just been sitting there. And I think it's good for this administration to start taking this money, use it for what it was intended for. And this is one of those cases. So thank you. Okay, next. Request purchase town land. Oh, no, capital plan, sorry. Oh,
No idea how many people are talking about this.
I tell you, it's a hot topic.
So it is, it's a hot topic for some. It is on there. It's in, we have quotes from Alan. Alan's here. He can speak on it. I'd like to, we need to put this to bed so I can vote. We can vote on this capital plan so I can bring it to the Board of Finance on the 15th of January. We did make 2 moves. We took the RTA program off. We decreased the the money for this room from 30,000 down to 10,000. And that's the only two changes we made at this point. I would like to entertain discussion on the mini excavator, where we're gonna add it or not add it. And then I'd like to vote to approve this so I can go to the Board of Finance and get this out in front of them. Brett, you want to carry this conversation?
Well, I'll start it at least. Alan, I know we talked about this quite a lot. And I know at one point we talked about a pre-owned one. There were a few that you saw, some that were really priced well. So when I look at one for 127, one for 126, and one for 151, compared to a pre-owned one that I think there was one for 60,000 or 70,000. Is that something that you highly recommend against? I know there's plenty of businesses in other towns that buy pre-owned for that savings to make things work. I am a little more hesitant with a new one than a pre-owned one because of the cost and where we are with the capital. But I'd like to hear your stance on some of that.
So my only thing is that like the used ones I had sent you, one was like 60,000, there was one for 55. I would definitely something I want to go look at and see it. I mean, one of them was, I know from United Rental that we used, it was a mess. They said the bottom was 50%. They didn't show pictures of the bottom. That'd be one I would just want to go see and look at it and see what it looks like. United Rentals has them up all the time. They sell regularly. It would just be one that we would have to like say, you got 60 grand to spend, and then hopefully we find 6 grand. If we said, hey, here's 75 and find one, it would be better to have, sadly, a little bit more, and if we don't spend it, we're better off to give that little bit back.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have to jump on it. That's the only thing. You have to have the money ready and go look at it and say, hey, there's one for 70 grand. The bottom's pretty good, should last. Everything seems to run good. Hope for the best. I mean, it is used. I have no problems with used as long as it's decently running. I don't want to buy something in 3 years. We got to put a new bottom in. I want to do that.
No. And is this, so the next question on that before we dive into this a little more, is there anything in our current budget that we'd be able to utilize it out of this year's budget or go for an appropriation for something like that compared to putting it in next year's budget? Because we know it comes up and we know, so if we look at what we spent for the last, 8 years? Where was that? Sorry.
Do you have a copy?
Yeah, so yeah, the last 8 years or so, we spent almost $50,000 in just rentals. And I know you have some projects coming up. So I would hate that even if we decide that we're putting in the budget, I do worry that now we're going to be renting until July at,
37
right, so,
a month.
yeah, so in last April, we spent 5,500. June, we spent 3,700.
We found a different rental place.
Right, but I'm saying is if we're jumping that for the next few months, like I would rather make a good case for the, I'm looking at Gary as I say this, but to the Board of Finance to say, hey, we're digging ourselves deeper in a rental when we can just go buy it and we want to put it in the budget. We were thinking about putting it in the budget anyways. I don't know the board's.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, we spent less than $50,000 in 8 years renting a piece of equipment when we needed it. We're looking at quotes that range from 126 to 151, right? To own something brand new. And how long would that brand new thing last us?
I hope 20 years if you take care of it.
It-
At least a minimum of 20 years with regular maintenance and not, there's no need to beat on it. It
But
should
we're
last
now-
a long time.
But we're now paying for maintenance and upkeep of that and any repairs. To me, $50,000 in 8 years doesn't seem like a lot of money.
Right, on the surface. But if you dive into this, you look at those first 6 years or so, we weren't utilizing it like we have the past 2 years.
And I
So
do believe-
15, 30, almost $30,000 of that was from the last 2 years.
And I do believe, we've been doing more drainage. I enjoy drainage a lot, so I hate it when water runs over the road. There's no need for it in a storm. So I've been on drainage. I've been finding a lot of bad drainage. Before we pave the roads, my biggest thing is drainage underneath. Fix what's under the surface before you fix the surface, because then you're just waiting for it to fall and collapse. That is one of my biggest pet peeves, when you pave a road and then you get done and then the pipe collapses underneath it. You just wasted it.
Right.
We've been doing a lot of more drainage, as you could tell, and there's a lot more pipe being bought, catch basins and stuff like that. So we've been doing quite a bit more of that.
If we did all the drainage you think we need to do to get the town where it needs to be, are we talking about 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
There's quite a bit. I mean, Hangman Hill's on my list to do in the spring. There's 9 pipes. A lot of them are over 6 feet deep and a lot of them are 36 inch in diameter. I don't really want to dig them up because there's a lot of them in granite head walls and stone walls. I looked at lining a couple of them. There's a 6-footer on a rudiment I looked at that's 12 feet deep. I don't really want to dig that up. I'm looking at trying to line it and a price on that, so you don't have to do that. There's a lot of shallow ones that should get replaced with even still aluminum or still steel plate or steel plate.
If we know we have 20 solid years of doing this, does it make sense to buy a new one? If it does, how long would we have to wait for it? I mean, we're waiting for trucks now that we ordered a year ago. So is this something that's not going to come in? Now we have to rent for another year or two, or waiting for a new one to come in?
I know Bobcat has a few on the lot.
Brand new.
Brand new. W.I. Clark has 1 9-ton, I think, in Connecticut on the lot. They could get one from other dealerships. The excavators, they're around. Like I said, we could buy a used one tomorrow in Massachusetts if you want it. We can get a used one, no problem. You can order a new one. It's usually a couple months. At the worst case, we bought something fancy, but most of them have a 9-ton sitting on the lot.
The new truck that's coming in for the transfer station, when that comes in, which we think is going to come in, is it this week, next week?
I'd give it 2 weeks at least.
Thought that was like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, no.
All right, so let's say it's going to come in before the end of January. When that comes in and that's fully being used, we're selling some things, right? What are we selling?
2 walking floor trailers, the 2 trucks that go along with the trailers, and the excavator possibly.
How many
Quite
dollars?
possibly for $126,000.
No, that's my
No,
point.
not at
No,
all.
no. What's the number you're looking at, do you think? A conservative number for the sale of that equipment?
I don't remember off the top of my head what we thought the trucks and trailers we were going at Marketplace last year. That excavator with the vintage of it, I'd be surprised if it brought 20,000. I don't know what the truck's at. It all depends on what people are looking for.
So is it safe to say 60,000? 50,000 total?
I would say 60, 70,000.
So say 60 conservatively. And how much did we just sell of town equipment last week in the auction? 30. All right, so 30. So basically, we're looking about selling about $90,000 worth of equipment between now and the end of February, correct? And a new truck is 120,000, new excavator. So wouldn't it be easier to go to the Board of Finance and say, hey, we're putting 90,000 back in the undesignated fund, but we're gonna ask for 120 to come out, so net 30? Can that make a better story to tell?
Absolutely.
But I need to know we're definitely selling these things at these numbers before I tell that story.
Yeah, I mean, the only one in question I know right now would be the excavator. It's too big for what we want to do on, say, Hangman Hill Road. I can't put it in the middle of the road. It's almost as wide as the road is when we get sideways in the road. It's not any good for doing drainage in small roads. It's just too big. After it's done packing garbage, I don't see a use to keep it. If we had to set big head walls or anything like that, more than likely I'd probably get a big crane because they're just too heavy for anything we have usually to pick them up anyways. So I don't see a use to keep it. I would think it'd be a good sale.
Well, if you thought that this was a 5-year project, not a 20-year project, I'd say, let's go get a used one. Let's get through the 5 years, then might drop back down to the $1,500, $1,700 a year thing. But if you tell me it's a 20-year project to get this town where it needs to be, and hopefully for us, you're here for those 20 years, it makes more sense to get a new machine, wouldn't it, than an old machine?
I would think so, because then you know, you're gonna get, like I said, there should be no reason we don't have it for at least 20 years. Like I said, with good maintenance, it should last quite a while.
So rather than put it on capital, why don't we approach the Board of Finance for an appropriation with the information from the sales of the other equipment that we have? We already know we sold 30,000 plus in the last 2 weeks at auction. If we can sell another 60,000 plus between now and the end of February, that's a better story to tell, and we don't have to impact the capital that way, correct?
I mean, I like that. And I know Gary is our always resident Board of Finance member. That's a lot in the audience, but I'd love to hear his quick take on it, because not only does Gary know equipment decently, he's also our biggest stickler on the Board of Finance. I think he takes pride in that. So I
But you
don't
know what
think
Gary
he
does
minds.
enjoy when he hears we're getting rid of stuff.
Yeah.
He does
Yeah, so I was
enjoy
gonna
that.
say, this rings like, anybody remember Popeye when I gladly pay you on Tuesday for
Right,
a hamburger
hamburger
today?
today.
But I'm fully supportive. There's another piece going up, I think. The old payloader, when we're done mixing sand and salt in the spring, that's gonna go. So I think there's a case to be made here, and if you look at what we're short from projected sales, it's like 30K for a 20-year asset. It sounds like the right thing to do. And the Volvo is, I'd be surprised if we don't get a little bit more money for it, because there's enough people out there that want free emissions, non-computerized equipment that may drive that up. I mean, we saw that with the brush truck. But for this town and the amount of maintenance associated with it, I would recommend something small that we can utilize regularly, so it's not sitting, and we don't have to buy into somebody else's deferred maintenance, because something like from United Rental, they usually run the bottom out of it. I mean, they're done.
So Gary, in your, as a resident.
As a
With
resident.
some background.
Yeah.
You would suggest that this isn't in the capital, that we go for an appropriation when we,
Yeah.
in the near future.
I think, I don't, yes, my opinion as a resident, do it under expense as opposed to capital. But make sure we get rid of some stuff. I'm looking at Brian, hopefully he's giving me the thumbs up.
So, so I think, Gary, that I think by the end of February, we do have and we're not going to be using excavator between now and then, the ground's too high. So we have a good story to tell about what we sold by then. The audit will be done pretty close, and so we'll know what the give back is to the town. So we might have a very healthy undesignated fund at that time. And for a net 30,000 or 35,000, I think it makes sense to do this as a 20-year deal, not a 5-year fix it, 5-year fix it, 5-year fix it.
Yep.
All right, then.
I'm on board with that.
Perfect. Nicole. Okay, thank you. So instead of putting it in the capital this evening, then,
That makes our capital feel a little better.
it does. So let's talk about the capital. Is there anything you want to change before we vote to see if we're going to adopt the capital as is before I go to the Board of Finance? I'm sure they will have feedback, but is there anything you've seen in the capital that you'd like to change? We did go through it once. Some of the things on here we're kind of locked in because of financing. The only thing that's new, that's big, would be the rescue truck as part of that 30-year program of capital that we've tried to introduce. Other than that, there's really nothing new. And we've got Alan here, if there's anything that pertains to the highway department or the transfer station. I'm just letting you know, I'm good with the way it is now, but I'll look for discussion from you.
Under the selectmen capital for the computers, just in the whole IT conversation, do we honestly think that 10,000 a year is something that is going to be attainable, or do we think?
So that's 10,000 for this coming year. And we have in the computers town hall on number 3265 and the capital money that's already been put aside in the past. We have 10,823.45, which is more than paying for the server. And that gives us an extra $10,000. Plus in the budget, the non-capital part of the IT budget, there's monies in there also for computer upgrades and so on.
So so this balance that says 16,543. That was as of November. Did we spend, the servers are out of there with your 10,000?
Where do you see that?
The first column,
Yeah, your FY 25 balance. as of 11.
that's before the servers, correct? Okay, so
Correct.
minus what was the total?
The servers were 7,000 and change, weren't
Right.
they? Right.
Then for me, I think it's a good starting point. I wouldn't necessarily, I don't have any recommendations to change anything at this point.
The only question I have is what are we looking as the plan? So we're gonna get a little feedback from the Board of Finance at some point on this, but before our budget process, correct? Before we're
Right,
like.
so I
because
present
we
to
want to
them,
say, this
Yeah,
is
this is
it,
solid.
this is a side. So when do we hear that back from the Board of
well,
Finance?
I'm gonna give it, present it on the 15th. I think the next meeting after the 15th is the 29th. I would say we probably have something back by the 29th.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to move this 5-year capital plan as presented forward to the Board of Finance.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, go through the pages. So request to purchase town land. I had a lot of phone calls about this because nobody really knew what piece of town land we were speaking of. In your packet, there's an attorney letter from a Iroquois lawyer office out of Wesley, and he's representing a resident who lives on Starlight Drive, number 9. And you'll see there's a map on in your packet. You got it. Right there. All right, so is it yours highlighted in yellow? Did I highlight yours in yellow? The last piece on the right?
but I see
No.
what you're saying.
Okay, so as you go down Starlight, that originally, where that yellow is, that's a lot. That's not a buildable lot. The person who lives right next to it, number 9, is asking if he can buy it. We know there's a process, and we can't just sell land to someone that asks for it. There's a process. When this subdivision was actually developed originally, there was supposed to be a cul-de-sac right there for a turnaround, and it was never done by the developer. It was just left as that's a wooded piece of property, and the road goes straight and then stops. With that said, I'd like to bring this. This is not a normal selectman issue, except for the fact that we have to control the process. It's more of a land use discussion. So I'd like to stop by having an approval to bring this to the land use department to get the A-24 review by the Planning and Zoning Commission, see if this is viable. We always do that when we're trying to sell a piece of land or buy a piece of land, especially sell, because the town may want to use this land for something else down the road. If this wasn't where it is, if this was somewhere else in town, they might say, well, that could be a future firehouse, or that could be a future, whatever, dog kennel, you name it, post office. So this piece of land will probably never be used by anyone but one of the abutting owners. But if you notice, there's 3 abutting owners, not just one. So I think the process would be to go to the planning and zoning, see if this piece of land could be sold. If it is, go to the assessor's office and get them to assess a value and tag a minimum bid on this, and then put it out to bid to see who would like to purchase it at that minimum value. The good news for the town is eventually, if this does go to one of the abutting owners or anyone, it goes on their tax rolls. So right now we're collecting no tax on this piece of property, and we'll start to collect tax whether any of the 3 abutting owners, does it make their property that much bigger? So that's the story on this. If there's any questions. And it's at the very end of Starlight, where Starlight ends and then Old Colony starts.
Inside Kingswood.
It's inside Kingswood. If you'd like, I'd be glad to show you the map.
So I'm in favor of moving it forward, and I just give you a little history from my side. Bob, I actually brought this to your attention probably 2 years ago, and maybe even before that, and I've mentioned it even prior to that to First Selectman Ergo, because these residents have asked about this property multiple times. And it was always just not the right time to talk about. There was always something else pressing that, hey, we'll get to this at some point. So I'm glad they finally got an attorney to write a letter so we can discuss it. But I've been out there, I've seen that, and it's really like a not useful piece of property angled on a corner. And I think at the time, that property owner that's addressing this, one of their concerns is they wanted to put a swimming pool in, but based on the way their land was, they couldn't with our regulations. So if they were able to purchase that property, they'd be able to do it. Now, I know if it goes forward, it's not just them that's open to that property, but for their determination over the, I want to say it's at least, how long have we been serving? 3 years? It's at least 5-6 years they've been talking about this. So I'd be in favor of moving this forward to.
The planning and zoning, and also they can look at, so we don't know, and planning and zoning will know this. When they add that piece of land to whoever buys the land, whether anybody knows, especially the one that's asking, what does that do to that land? Does that land now become big enough to subdivide? Or is there something we don't know?
Right.
And that's where the planning and zoning would come involved. You have a question? It looks like it's, I'm guessing it looks like it's less than an acre.
So do we have any, and this may not be for us to decide, but the other two abutting owners, do we have any idea if the one requesting purchase it has talked with them? I mean,
I don't,
we
but
could clear cut it and have
it's,
a swimming pool, and now the neighbors have no, I was,
well, so what I would do is, I think the process would be after we get the A-24 review done, and it's, and the planning is just Board of Selectmen, yes, you can sell this. And because it's town property, it has to go to a town meeting. I think I would contact all the abutting owners and say, this is now going up for sale. It's assessed at this value. We're gonna put it out to bid. Please give us your best price, type of thing. And
I
then-
just want to also say that pool idea could be totally scrapped. I don't want to put that on record as
Hey.
that,
Well, you just
that's what
don't
they're
know.
doing, that they're clear cutting. Yeah.
So it's an unbuildable lot.
Yeah, it's
From a subdivision perspective, but we don't know what the owner wants, with the potential owner
Right.
would want to do with it. And after we sell it, that is completely up to
Right.
them if they.
it
And I
could-
do feel a little more comfortable that it is Kingswood. There isn't a lot of spaces between properties there to begin with, but
Whoever owns a big piece on the upper
Yeah,
side,
so that-
I mean, he has a long right of way to get to his house, that number 49. He could actually develop a road, go through that property, and come out on Starlight and have another means of egress from his
at which
property.
property? is it?
The one
that
up, the
would be
big up,
cutting
the
right
big one
through
here.
somebody else's property, though.
Well, that's his property, but if he bought that piece of property, couldn't he extend that driveway and come through there and come out on Starlight?
But that
That, I think the property that you're looking at,
goes to Mystic Road.
it's Mystic Road. Those are the houses that
Yeah.
are on Mystic.
Oh, they
Road.
are, but
Yeah.
his property comes all the way and butts this property though, correct? Right, so I mean, it could give him another means. I'm just thinking, why would he want it?
Well, I think that they would, so I like the fact that we would be contacting the abutting neighbors, and it needs to go, I'm not opposed to moving it forward to planning and zoning.
And there's a very definite process we have to follow, and we just follow the process, so.
And
Gary-
and the nice part is you're not just saying we're selling to this one person because they
No,
were,
it's going out
we're,
to bid.
we're putting it out there and bid or
Yeah,
whatever.
and I talked to a resident who actually approached me about, hey, what is this on the agenda? And I just let them know. He said, make sure that everybody knows it has to go out to bid. Sell it.
And, and some of the things that came up with in the past when talking about this, is, well, there's a lot of little properties like this that the town owns. There's a few little ones.
There's probably close to 45 just in Kingswood.
Right, so it might be something that if this goes through, we start looking at some of the other stuff to get them on the tax rolls that aren't usable, that we'll
Yeah.
never use, but let's start with one.
Did we let, on Crest, who is my neighbor, they were looking to purchase the empty unbuildable lot next to them as well.
And they haven't approached us, so. Gary?
So, sorry if I overstep, but it would be be wise to let the town planner sort of contemplate what sort of deed restrictions you place on it before you think about selling it. Call out, or at least understand what you're willing to allow and what you're not, because you're the owners. You get to decide this now, and it can be part of the deed restrictions when you transfer the property. But if you go to the market and say how much of this land, and then try to apply deed restrictions as part of the negotiation, you're gonna see a down trade in price. Just when you go to the market, go out with certainty and knowing what you're willing to allow the new owner to put on it and not.
But that area is zoned already. Someone that lives in that neighborhood has to,
Yeah, but you could say never to be developed. You could change the setbacks. As the owner, you could put a deed restriction for whatever you choose. So
So I
if
think
the
that would be-
town or the town planner has a vision as to what we want that property to be or not be, you can call that out in a deed restriction. So when you sign a purchase and sale agreement, that carries.
I don't disagree. I think that'd be good for the land use department to figure that out. All right, thank you. And did you want to see this or are you good? So in the Kingswood Meadowood neighborhood, there's multiple lots. I think there's over 40 that when the developer developed this land back in 60s, we'll say. At that time, when people started developing, they always wanted to give the towns were asking for open space. So the towns said you can build 85 houses, but we need open space because they didn't want these subdivisions to be taking over these properties. What most developers did back then, they took all the best lots for us and built houses on them. If they found lots that were very wet or had a lot of ledge and they're going to be more expensive to develop, they'd save those. Once they used every good lot they could possibly find that they could make a profit on, they gave all the other lots back to the town as, oh, here's your open space. And that's what this did. This was actually supposed to be a cul-de-sac. They were back to the town for open space, but the lots in Kingswood Meadowood are all over the place. And there's got to be over 40 lots in Kingswood Meadowood. That it's not like it's in one area where you could put like a ball field. That's exactly right.
Pipeline, the gas pipeline also runs really good. So it actually is. Yeah. Pipeline for gas. Building that's good.
Right. So that's the answer on that. Yeah, the town probably required X number of acres. They probably gave them more than we needed. And that would be something for planning and zoning to look into. Exactly. But I don't, again, as Gary said, if you put a restriction that this has to be kept as open space, it can't be subdivided to another house. If someone buys it, right now it's a piece of property that no one's using and the town's not getting any taxes on it. So this becomes now part of the tax roll and it stays open and
No, the original intent was to be a cul-de-sac.
yeah, and this piece was a cul. Yeah,
Yeah.
and this one here originally was supposed to be a cul-de-sac. But the developer never got that far. Okay. All right, so we're just gonna, do we vote on this already?
No, so I'll make a motion to send this to planning and zoning for an 824 review.
Perfect.
I'll second.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, not last.
Make a motion to approve tax refunds in the CCAP, auto lease, a car leasing, Charles Griffin, for a total of $1,104.45.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the tax refund, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all business vacancies and appointments, as I mentioned earlier, Hewitt Farm is starting to meet again. They have some vacancies, which we'll try to fill. There's also a couple of vacancies on the Traffic Commission. And we've put some feelers out for that. And other than that, we're in pretty good shape. Any public comment? Brian, I know you'd love to be public comment, but we can't figure out how to do it. Okay, so you can call me tomorrow if you'd like at the office or stop by. But in the meantime, any other public comment by anyone here or online? Next meeting is January 21st. I will be presenting to the Board of Finance, I believe, on the 15th with the capital. And I have a capital committee meeting on the 13th of July.
So hold on, you're.
January.
presenting-
January. I keep saying July, January.
You're presenting capital to Board of Finance on the 15th.
15th, is that a Wednesday? I'm presenting on that day, but I'm just presenting in capital. On the 13th, I have a capital committee meeting with Gary and Nino and that group. And then we'll meet again on the 21st. Luckily, I'm getting a lot of the budget requests in, and myself and Suzanne are compiling those. So far, so good. Nothing crazy is happening, I don't see. I did send an email today to all the presenters that the Board of Finance requested their presentations a week ahead of time. I copied Winona on that email, so she knows I asked. I asked for I'll send their budgets over, but if they have any slide decks, PowerPoints or anything like that, we'll get those a week ahead and send them to the Board of Finance. Suzanne had a great idea, and I think it's going to be great for all of us. We just ordered 12 of the white 2-inch binders. We're going to put all the requests of everything I get, you guys are going to get a copy of all the originals, and so is the Board of Finance and Suzanne. So we have all the different editions of the budget as we go, but then we'll 3-hole punch them all. You'll have all this. So whatever Park Effect neighborhood asked for, whatever TVCCA asked for, you'll get it all. And we'll have a binder, and then the Board of Finance will each get a binder. So that should make them very happy. And there's something else I just did. Tell you after the meeting because it's a surprise. All right, I'll talk to you later.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thanks.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Bye.